What is up, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, we're going to be doing another deck profile for you. This time, we're re-looking at LAIR of Darkness. This is one of my staple decks on the channel. It's one of my favorite decks of all time, so it's, makes sense. The deck is insane. I really think this deck is powerful. I've always thought it's one of those decks that could beat any deck on any day. It does have certain consistency things, but I think they've slowly gotten less and less of concerns over time. And we already have cards that we'll talk about at the end that I look forward to the future because they actually help the deck with some of those consistency problems as well. So the deck's amazing. We're going to be going into that. I have some new spice I haven't really shown to you guys before, and I'm really excited to get to. And then one more thing, might as well throw it out there. If you think this mat looks clean, I know it's upside down, but it has the Crusadia Equimax on this side, Gears of the Orcus Max Knight on the other side, and it's really clean. If you think it's dope, definitely check it out in the link in the description. Shout out to my boy Charles from Team COG. I'm not going to push you to get it, but if you get it, you'll save 10% using my code also in the description below. It's just 10. Help Charles out, get me a little bit of something, and then you'll get an awesome mat for 10% off. We all win, right? So do that if you want. But without further ado, let's just jump into this list. No more lollygagging, all right? So starting off with the list, obviously you start with 3 Lilith, Lady of Lament. She's the best card in the deck. Like, literally, she's just straight up the best card in the entire deck. You just don't mess around. You play 3 of her. She's insane. She's a quick effect. Tribute a dark monster to get 1 of 3 traps. Or actually, you could technically put 3 copies of the same trap in there, and then you'll get it set directly to your field. The other really cool thing is that she sets it directly to the field, so she cannot be ashed at all, which is really clean. So 3 Lilith, obviously, makes sense. Next up, we go for something that I haven't really been playing for a while now, which is 3 Tour Guide, and then a Sangam, a Skarm, and 1 Dark Resonator. So this is a really interesting package. Some people may be like, what the fuck is going on here, right? So pretty much these are your Skarm targets, as well as Lilith. Keep in mind you can summon Lilith. There's cool interactions between Lilith and Tour Guide. If Tour Guide summons Lilith, she can attempt to activate, but she won't be able to resolve under Tour Guide. But that just means if you have LAIR, you can still just quick tribute an opponent's monster. But even if Lilith tributes herself, she just won't get you a trap. So just keep that in mind, but you can pay cost, which is tributing, which can still work, right? So yeah, but other than that, your utility here is either grabbing Sangam, which you can immediately link these 2 off and get yourself a search for any card with 1500 or less attack, which is pretty nice. Skarm, which will get you either another Tour Guide or a Lilith on end phase, or Dark Resonator, which can't be destroyed by battle once per turn, but mainly he's a tuner, and that's the big thing there that we'll get to. So yeah, just a lot of good stuff here. We'll get into more of this and how they kind of function in the deck. I might show some combos at the end of the video if we have time. But they're not the craziest combos, but I might just show you anyway. So yeah, that is it. And I kind of just wanted another normal summon. That's what the deck needs, is another normal summon. And that's what Tour Guide provides, is just consistency, getting to a good play, right? All right, and then for the other standard stuff, a 3 Arima, and I'm going to stop here because you're going to notice right this second that I'm stopping here because no Diabolos. And I know that might be blasphemy to a lot of people, but I really was trying to build the most competitive version of LAIR this time around. And I honestly think that Diabolos is just a big old brick, man. I'd rather be seeing straight up Lilith or straight up Tour Guide, like an actual starter, than Diabolos. Diabolos is a win more card. When you're already doing what the deck wants to do, tribute stuff to get more value, that's when he's good. And yes, he can be good, but he's kind of win more. And then when he's bad, he's completely useless, right? So when he's good, he's great, but when he's bad, he's so terrible. And the biggest problem to LAIR to me is consistency. So I wanted to focus heavily on consistency, and thus Diabolos got the cut. Also, the deck's 44 cards right now. You could play him and play 45 if you want, but that's a personal decision. I'm deciding not to. That's just me. Okay, so for the Warden, obviously he's either the field spell or he could be a pseudo normal summon. He's 1700, so he's kind of a beater, and he can tribute a monster to draw a card. Okay, that still works too. They're pretty fine. They're pretty good effects. Going second, activate LAIR, normal summon Arima, tribute a monster to draw a card. That's pretty plus, to be honest. And then we get to the artifacts, and we're on 2 Scythe and 1 moral attack. I know what you're looking at this and saying, that's disgusting, John. What the hell are you doing? What's wrong with you? 2 scythe? That's terrible. Okay. Moral attack 1 is just better versus other control matchups, better than scythe is, and 2, after turn 1, like scythe is, or moral attack's just almost always better than scythe, unless you'd already been scything your opponent throughout the course of the duel anyway. But yeah, double scythe. This means if you draw 1, the other one will still be live. This deck has like 10 plus ways of hard drawing a way to get scythe on your own turn, as well as we have a combo with Tour Guide that can get you to like unbrick a scythe or a moral attack should you draw them, that we'll get into also a little bit later on. So 2 and 1 for that. They're not entire bricks because you can draw them with like a Tour Guide play. We'll get to that later. Alright, and then for the monster hand traps, keeping it extremely simple. Really, really simple, not going crazy here. 2 Ash, 1 Ogre. I had my other Ashes in the other in another deck, so we're going with the commons here. I guess it makes it a little more budget. Yeah, nothing too crazy here. These are mainly like, this could be part of your combo that we'll get to, like I said, later, but Ash is cool, particularly for the Sangan. Like, right, you summon Sangan off of Tour Guide or another card we'll show later, then you link it off and you get a free hand trap essentially to hand. If you already have a hand trap, you could just grab another Tour Guide, just set up for next turn, get a guaranteed follow-up normal summon. Right, so a lot of good value there. I mean, Sangan's slow, but he does search like half of the cards and half of the monsters in the game, right? So I didn't want to go overkill on hand traps. You don't need to. The deck already has inherent ways of going second. That's decent. I'm not saying that it's great going second, but it can do pretty decent going second. And that's it for the monsters. I believe there's 18 monsters in here. Then we get to the spells. Obviously, 3 layer. This is like Zombie World. The equivalent in this deck to Zombie World in Zombies. Your opponent's goal for like facing this deck is almost always going to be, do not let this card stay face up. So you want to play 3 of them so that you can continue to get them, play them, and force them to continue to have outs. And yeah, so originally I wasn't even playing Terraforming, but when I added the 3 cards to go from 40 to 43, I was kind of sitting there like, now I just hurt my ratio of seeing LAIR. So I was like, let me just throw 1 Terraforming in there. So now instead of 6 copies in a 40 card deck, we've got 7 copies in a 44 card deck. I was like, those ratios are fairly even as far as like how they translate. So I was like, that makes sense, right? Yeah, you just want to see LAIR. Like LAIR just makes your deck like better. So there, a staple in the deck. 3, Super Polymerization. This card's insane. We all know how busted this card is. LAIR makes everything dark. There's like multiple generic dark fusion monsters, and then this card just hits your opponent. It can't be responded to. It's an amazing going second card. Can be a disruption and can like disrupt your opponent, then taking you into another disruption depending on what you are fusing off. So really, really cool there. Obviously, gotta play that. It's just like it's super poly in this deck. Same thing as Zombies is like it's never reliant on the format. The format can make it a little better, make it work when you don't have LAIR, but still, it's just too good not to play, in my opinion. And then next up, the Sword of Spice. This card used to be huge in LAIR, but it kind of fell off after a while. 3 Ties of the Brethren. This card is insane. If you don't know how it works, you pay 2,000 life points and target a face-up level 4 or lower monster. Then you're going to summon 2 monsters straight from the deck with the exact same level, type, and attribute. So it's going to be a level 3 Dark Fiend. So you go, boom, level 3 Dark Fiend. Boom, level 3 Dark Fiend. And you just get it's just a +2. Or, yeah. No, it's a +1. Technically, it's a +1, but trust me, it's going to be a +2 at minimum. Sometimes it's a +3. This card's insane. It's one of those cards where, like, if you're going first and you resolve this, it like, resource-wise, it's going to be hard for you to lose that duel. This card's just insane. After this card resolves, you only lose to very specific blowout cards that this deck just has a poor matchup versus. But other than that, like, yeah, I don't know how you lose. So, yeah, 3 ties. Very good. And it's an extender. Like, the cool part is you have stuff like Tour Guide, so you could go normal Tour Guide. If your opponent wants to Ash, Valor, and Permanence that, so it doesn't resolve. If you just follow it up with, like, a Ties of the Brethren, they're just like, oh, no. Oh, no. Like, you got that duel in the bag, man. The last spell I play is 3 Pot of Extravagance. Yes, this deck does use the extra deck somewhat with like Super Poly and stuff, but I just felt like this deck has always needed a card like this. Honestly, it needs its own version of a card like this. Maybe if it had an in-archetype searcher, like a search spell or something, then maybe we wouldn't have to play this, but this is mainly to try and draw into normal summons, if not draw into just more traps, more cards that can just help you control the game, all that. But it's a +1, it baits a hand trap, forces out negates, and it helps you see your side deck cards. Overall, I think it's just a must-have in the deck, and we'll talk about a card that can replace it that's coming in the future. Then we get to the trap lineup. I'm going to show all of them at once. Just going to lay them all down. 3 copies of Artifact Sanctum. I know the lighting up here is not amazing, but just Artifact Sanctum. 3 copies. Well, we'll do it this way. Then 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, as well as 2 copies of Dogmatic Punishment, 2 copies of Ice Dragon's Prison. Sorry I don't have them in person just yet, but I'm going to have them hopefully soon. 2 back to the front, and then the last card is 1 Trap Trick. We'll show that there. So this is our trap lineup here. It's all fairly makes sense, right? Like Lilith searches you normal traps. Trap Trick searches you normal traps. They all give you utility. Sanctum is the most important one. That's why we only played it. That's the only one we play at 3, other than like a permanence, obviously, because it's good going second. Going first, you're almost always searching Sanctum off of Lilith, unless you already have it. So then the other ones are all like utility. That's why I only play them at 2. You can grab them off Trap Trick if you need to. You can grab them off Lilith by putting 2 of them in, and then Trap Trick being the 3rd card, so you're guaranteed to get the cards you want. And other than that, they're just good. I feel like Back to the Front's always been good at LAIR, but I never really wanted to play more than 2 copies because it is kind of not the best to open, right? But it's still a great follow-up. And then just Ice Dragon's Prison is just insane versus like every deck in the game. Like it's actually insane versus every deck in the game. And Dogmatic Punishment has kind of just come in and it's completely power crept the Ballista Squad like out of the deck. I used to play Ballista Squad, but it was one of those cards that it was amazing when LAIR was face up on the field, but it was absolute dookie doo-doo when LAIR wasn't on the field. So I think Dogmatic Punishment is just insane. I think you got to play it, and we have some spicy targets to send off of it. And then as far as Trap Trick goes, I guess that's the only other thing I'd note here is this is a card I've played at 3 in this deck in the past, and I've decided to bump it down to 1. I just think this deck has gotten more and more powerful, so you don't have to play this at 3 anymore, where like 3, the idea behind 3 was like it's just consistent and it gets you what you need when you need it more consistently. But this deck doesn't grind as much anymore. This deck's a little bit better at applying pressure than it was in the past, so you're not going into like 10 turn duels anymore. The game's too fast for that. So 1 is fine, so when you guarantee that 1 search, and if you have to do a random search later on, then I'm okay with that. I really am. But you can't play too many traps. We're already playing 13 of these and 13 spells. I don't even know if I mentioned that before, but yeah, this is just a one of, just so you can, if you need to, guarantee a Back to the Front, guarantee an Ice Dragon's Prison, or guarantee a Dogmatic Punishment should you need any of them. So that is it for the main deck. Like I said, 44 cards. There's just so much you have to fit. You have to fit the like nice, diverse trap lineup. I thought almost all the spells were necessary. I didn't have Ties of the Brethren in the list at first, but then when I looked at it, I was like, we have 9 targets. And that's one thing with Back to the Front that's so cool, is like, I would say legitimately the only bricks in the deck are like Dark Resonator and like you could say in certain hands, the artifacts, right? But Dark Resonator plus Ties of the Brethren, like Ties of the Brethren makes this card so good. And even these are kind of bricks too. Ties of the Brethren plus these, oh, so disgusting, right? And we'll get to it. I'll show you a little combo at the end. So I'll show you 2 little combos at the end. I decided just now I'm going to show you, no matter how long this video is. So 44 cards in the main. Let's get to the extra real quick. It's going to be a lot of self-explanatory stuff. 2 copies of Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, 2 copies of Predaplant Trifio Veritum, and 2 copies of Mud Dragon of the Swamp. I know we're playing Extravagance, but the good thing about these cards is they all kind of overlap each other, right? If LAIR's on the field, all 3 of these can probably hit any deck, right? Because if LAIR's on the field, all you need is any 2 monsters on the field. If LAIR's on the field, you only need any 3 monsters on the field, and you can make him. And then if you LAIR's on the field, all you need is 2 monsters with different types, which is very easy to achieve from your opponent to make this guy alive. So even Extravagance, it's almost like you have 6 of the same things, but Trifia Veritum's the best one because if you can make it, it then represents like a negate of a summon of an extra deck monster, which is also insane. So you rip 3 monsters off your opponent's board, then have a negate for a summon, which is too much. Like so many decks like just can't beat that. So those are your super poly targets. Pretty self-explanatory. For your Dogmatic Punishment targets, you've got 2 copies of Untis, of course, getting that extra pop, and 1 copy of another card I don't have, but this one's already in the mail. I just didn't want to wait like potentially a week because I ordered it yesterday. It's Predaplant Chimera Rafflesia. This card is insane. This card has a couple of different effects. You're never actually fusion summoning it, although technically it's possible, but those effects aren't as relevant. The main thing is, I believe it's on the end phase of the turn that it's sent to the graveyard. Hold on. Actually, I'll show it to you. I'll show it to you here. I got it here. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Once per turn during your next standby phase after this card was sent to the graveyard, you can add a polymerization spell card or fusion spell card from your deck to your hand. So the idea here is if you don't really have a second thing you want to pop by using Untis, you could just send Rafflesia and just add a Super Poly to your hand. Now keep in mind, you are going to be under dogmatic punishment until the next turn, so you won't be able to use that Super Poly that turn, but it's a quick play. So you can still set it and use it on your opponent's turn. So it just gives you extra little versatility there. And keep in mind also, with Dogmatica running around, you could get Maximus at any time, and these kind of help you versus that situation as well. Okay, moving on from those, we have Link monsters. Almirage, this is mainly just here for like normal summon Sangan, normal summon Skarm. You can link them off to just guarantee their searches, so you don't like end your turn, your opponent ends up bouncing them, shuffling them, banishing them, and they don't go to grave. You don't get your search, right? They just guarantees you the search. Witch's Apprentice, when you want to push for game and you have LAIR up, this is going to make everything dark. Not make everything dark, but it's going to make everything dark that is dark gain 500 attack, which is huge. And then you just push for a ton of damage. Like, it just allows you to OTK when you otherwise can't. One Verte Anaconda. This is another cool card. This could also be Beat Cop, but this was a flex spot, and I decided to go with this. I thought this would come up a little more often. The only real application of this card in this deck, because we're not playing Dragoon, we already have bricks in the deck. I'm not trying to hurt consistency anymore. Send Super Poly and then just rip 2 monsters plus Verte Anaconda to make a Trifia Veritum. So it's going to be like send 2 monsters from your opponent's field to the graveyard, then make a Trif, which is actually pretty nasty. So pretty cool, and it's just generic. It gets cards off the field like Sangan and Skarm. And then the last card is Kristra and Halki Fibrax. This will come up in the combo I'll show you at the end with the Dark Resonator. But other than that, it doesn't really come up. You could also make it with by normaling a hand trap. As well, which is actually could come up, no joke. And then the last 2 cards in the deck are 1 TG Wonder Magician, also part of the combo. We'll show you in a sec. And the last card here is White Aura Bahamut, or Bahamut, whatever, Behemoth. Jesus, its name is so weird. Anyway, all this card is a Synchro level 10, right? So you can make him with the TG Wonder Magician and an artifact, which I'll show you in a sec. During your turn, when it's synchro summoned, you can special summon a Divine Dragon token that is 3,300 attack, 3,000 defense in defense position. Also, during your opponent's turn, if you control no tokens, you can quick effect special summon 1 Divine Dragon token. So one of these guys, 3,000, they're huge. And if this card you control is destroyed by an opponent's card effect and sent to grave while you control a token, you can just special summon this guy back. So your opponent has to remove the token before they remove him. He's kind of just annoying. The whole idea here is you're going to lock your opponent out of really being able to play, then summon this guy and a 3,300 token, which is going to be 6,600 damage, and your opponent wasn't able to play. So you already have at least 6,600 damage going into your next turn to kind of just beat your opponent over the head with. And I'll show you that in just a second. So that is the main and the extra. Keep in mind, extravagance is a thing, so you can lock yourself out of doing the like quick little combo, which is totally fine. It's honestly not the end of the world if you do, but I'm going to show you the quick little combo anyway. So first things first, the combo is just Tour Guide, and let's say you open Scythe, right? It's opening these, so if you have like kind of a brick, but you have Tour Guide, which kind of makes it not really much of a brick. So all you're going to do here is you're going to normal summon Tour Guide, right? You are going to use Tour Guide to special your Dark Resonator. Great, okay? These 2 are going to be linked off for Halki Fibrax. Blah, 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 blah. And then you will trigger your Hulk, okay? Hulk is going to trigger to special summon a tuner straight from the deck. You're going to get an Ogre. Keep in mind the interaction here is actually pretty cool. Hulk says the monster you summon off of his effect cannot use its effects till the end of the turn. So during your opponent's turn, Ogre's actually live, and a lot of people also don't realize that Ogre can activate from field. It's one of the only hand traps that can activate from field or hand, which is really cool. So you have Ogre during your opponent's turn. Then you're going to set your Scythe, right there, and we're going to pass turn. That's it. I know you're saying, John, pass turn? Are you serious? Yeah, all right, it's fine. Okay, so Halki 5X can trigger during your opponent's main phase or battle phase to banish itself. So we're going to do that. Let's say your opponent committed a monster to the field, so at least we can do this without worrying about getting Gamut or something, right? So we're going to banish our Halki 5X to do his effect to summon a Synchro Tuner from the extra deck. Okay, summoning TG Wonder Magician. Well, she's going to trigger on summon. We can move these over. She's going to trigger on summon, which is an auto effect, so she has to trigger on summon to pop a spell or trap card. So you could use this just pop an opponent's spell or trap, but in this instance, we're going to use it to pop our own Scythe, right? Because Scythe was destroyed during our opponent's turn, he can summon himself and then trigger again to lock our opponent out of the extra deck. Well, that also can help trigger our Wonder Magician effect, because she says when it has to work per chain, right? She can chain. She can add to a chain to do a quick synchro summon on your opponent's turn. So she just can't start a chain. She needs to respond to something that's already happened, right? So she's responding to the Scythe triggering to lock your opponent out of the extra deck, in which case she will synchro summon those two into the card I just showed you at the end of the video, White Aura Behemoth. And now he gets 3,300. It's during your opponent's turn, so you control no tokens. You can summon a token that's going to be 3,300 attack, 3,000 defense. And then you're good, right? So now your opponent is under Scythe. They cannot, they have to play through Ogre, and you already have a 3,300 and a 3,300 beater on the field. So even if they try and summon things to defend themselves, you almost guaranteed are going to be able to clear over them fairly easily. And then all you need is like you need 1,400 damage somewhere to like finish it off, right? Which is not that hard to do. So that's the combo there. That's the idea with the Hulk stuff and the TG Wonder Magician. It's a pretty cool combo. When it comes up, it feels so dirty. It feels so clean, but it's also like the least degenerate Hulk combo in the game. Just pretty cool. And then I'm going to show you the high ceiling play with like Ties of the Brethren. It's really, really simple. Okay, the best way you can open Ties of the Brethren is with a tour guide, because it just gets you that extra monster. So this 2-card combo is insane. Just keep in mind you could swap this for any level 3 Dark Fiend, and you could still do this. Just it won't be as plus. It'll just be like one less card essentially in goodness. So we're going to go normal summon tour guide, use her effect. And that's the cool thing here is even if this gets ashed, ogred, or not ogred. Ogred's not good. No, ogred's fine, actually. Ash, Ogre, Veil, or Impermanence, you're still totally good because you have the Ties of the Brethren, right? So you're going to use your effect to summon a monster straight out of the deck. You don't want to summon Lilith because she will be negated by tour guide. So we're just going to summon the Sandgang because we want him to go to grave anyways. Then we're going to activate the Ties of the Brethren, targeting either of these. It doesn't really matter. Let's just target the Sangyan, right? So then we'll summon Lilith, Lady of Lament, and we'll summon a Skarm to the field. On summon, Skarm is going to pop itself, which is fine because now it's going to trigger on end phase to get us a search for another follow-up play. And then you're going to be sitting here like this, okay? What do we do now? Now we're just going to keep it simple. Lilith is going to tribute the Sangyan, not pop it. Tribute the Sangyan to get yourself a trap. If you don't have Sanctum, you always get Sanctum here because we want to Scythe our opponent all the time. We'll move these up so you can see them a little more. And then Sangyan will trigger to get you probably an Ash. If you don't have Ash, you can grab the Ogre, so you have Ash Ogre on top of all this. And then from there you pass. On end phase, Skarm's going to get you probably another tour guide, but you could grab a Lilith if you want it, but let's just say tour guide in this instance. So there you go. In this combo, you started with tour guide and Ties of the Brethren, and you end with Lilith. If you opened LAIR, you'll have the Lilith Tribute Disruption, or otherwise it's just going to get you another trap. You have Tour Guide on field, which can be your tribute if you didn't open LAIR, so you still get to maintain the Lilith on field. She's 2,000 attack, by the way, because you special summoned her. You have the Sanctum, so your opponent's going to be under Scythe during the turn. And you have Tour Guide and Ash. And Ash is pretty cool, too, because Gamma's so popular that when you Scythe them, they may just try and Gamma the Scythe, just so they can play, but you have the Ash for the Gamma. And then once you Scythe them, they're just like, well, yep, that'll do it. And then you have Tour Guide for follow-up. Like, you literally go +3. It's an insane combo. And just keep in mind, you could do this with any of the dark, level 3 darks. It just changes. Tour Guide is just the most +1 because you get that extra monster. So it'll literally be the same thing. You just don't end on, like, Tour Guide as well. Which is totally fine. So that's the 2 combos. The deck is really honestly good. I think the consistency has been fixed a little bit with this type of build, but I think it can still get better in the future. A big card that I think the deck is going to get in the near future is Pot of Disparity. That card's insane. It's literally like Extravagance, but at least with Extravagance, you could randomly banish one of your 3 like help combo cards. Whereas in this deck, you could literally go, okay, I'm going to banish 6 that aren't any of those 3, save like 1 or 2 super poly targets, and get to like search for something. It lets you dig for LAIR if you need specifically LAIR to make your field better. If you didn't have a normal summon, you're digging 6 cards deep to look for a normal summon. And then you're good to go. Like, that's the problem with this deck, is you either don't see LAIR enough or you don't see Lilith enough. But with I just think Disparity is better than Extravagance at finding you one of those cards. You're digging 6 cards deep and picking it instead of just drawing 2 randomly and praying that it's in there. So there. That's it for the list, though, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I know I got pretty in-depth, but this is one of my favorite decks of all time and a staple deck on the channel, so I felt like I really had to go in-depth here. Hopefully, it showed you a lot of cool stuff about the deck. I hope and implore you to try out this build and give it a shot for yourself, see how it goes. But I truly believe this deck can beat any deck on any day, seriously. But yeah, that's going to do it from here. Thank you so much for watching. As always, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more deck profiles like this one in the future. And I will see you in the next one. Peace. Ah, what a good one. I nailed this. I nailed this for sure.